Oh, really?
Oh, am I early? I'm sorry, I thought it was.
Yes. Oh, 2 minutes.
So I'd like to call tonight's Town of Oregon annual meeting to order. And before we jump into the agenda, I just wanted to mention a couple program notes. So this is not a board meeting, even though it looks like a board meeting. It's a town meeting of electors. If there are votes that come up, if you are a resident of the town, if you're 18 or over, and if you're here in person, then you're able to vote. And actually, the first thing that we could vote on, and I should say too, you're able to make a motion. You're able to, once we get to this agenda item, you're able to discuss whatever you'd like to discuss. This is really a meeting for the town. But let's jump to the item number 2, the approval of minutes from the 2024 annual meeting, and you'll find that in the packet on page 3. But if anyone has any edits or corrections or additions that are needed, please let us know, let me know. And then I'd be looking for a motion to approve last year's minutes. And it can come from the board members, it can come from anyone who meets the voting requirements.
I'm sorry.
I'll see.
The minutes from the 16th.
A second?
Okay, nobody seconds. Stephanie, jotting that down for you, Jennifer.
I am.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion about the minutes from last year? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no, and that motion passes. Thank you. The next item is setting next year's meeting, which is really dictated by statute. And so it'll be April 26th, and again, by statute, it'll be the 14th, which is the third Tuesday. No, I take that back. Sorry, second Tuesday. I mean, you don't.
I got, you know what, I didn't keep everything. It's the third Tuesday, and that is the third Tuesday. I can, yeah, it's the third Tuesday. I might be- Yeah, I have the calendar in there.
Is that the second?
That's the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it should be a 21st.
I think it's the 21st now.
The third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, I had that, and then I think I looked at somebody else's, I changed it.
Or maybe you didn't change it back. So it's the 21st.
21st, okay,
April 21st,
21st.
2026.
We're gonna change that to April 21st. I feel like I looked at the town of Rutland.
So there's no vote necessary on that one. That's just
The statutory date of April 21st at 6 p.m.
right. And then agenda item number 4 is any new business from the floor, and this is where we welcome anyone who would like to bring up a topic that you want to discuss, or if you have questions, the floor is yours. And it's also okay if you don't.
County CC, is that maintenance done half by the county, half by the town, and
The road maintenance?
yeah,
Yeah.
road maintenance, is there any plans of smoothing that out a little bit?
On CC.
County Highway CC is
Yep,
Dane
just
County.
CC.
It's a Dane County highway.
So that's
So
maintained
it's
by
not
Dane
half
County.
that?
No, it's not half each. So it's 100% Dane County.
It's pretty rough road between Fish Hatchery and the village.
Is there gonna be any resurfacing soon?
The county has a project coming up on that. They're designing it now. It'll probably be 3 to 5 years before it's actually built.
Ro,
As a resident of Raven Oaks, I'd like to create a report from Raven Oaks. There was dancing in the streets a couple days ago with the notice from the township that our streets are going to be repaved in the next 2 weeks. So thank you to the board. We're all looking forward to that. It's gonna be a big benefit to our neighborhood. Thank you.
did you see too that the start date moved up a week?
Yes, and I thought that was an extra benefit to get that email to highlight the two-step process over those multiple weeks. So
Excellent. Well, thank you. Anyone else?
Ask, do you have like a Facebook group or anything for that Raven Oaks neighborhood that you know of?
we have a very, very informal one through a, I think it's, I'm blanking on the name, but it's a sort of community business networking mode that gives you the ability to set up a Raven Oaks Facebook page. I'd have to look it up. I can talk with you later, Jennifer,
Okay,
if you'd like to.
we're just trying to figure out how to get it to most people, because the letter, just letting people know it's a week out, earlier.
If you'd like to type up some text, send it to me by email. I'll be glad to do a personal post for that effect.
Okay,
There is a Raven Oaks Facebook group. It looks like it's not used very often. I forget the realtor's name in the.
Sherry McKay might.
Sherry, I
might
think
be
Sherry is the
behind
admin for
and
that.
stuff.
There's a next door. Raven Oaks
That's what I'm
also,
referring to, Jennifer. It's next
Oh.
door.
And I don't know how often people use that either.
okay, I can look at it.
It's a mixed bag because some of the posts come from the west side of Madison and there's no interest in, lost dogs from the west side of Madison.
Oh.
But
Okay,
I'd be glad to help out.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ro. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna move on then to item number 5, and that's very good timing because Deputy Collins just came in the door.
Hello.
Would you like to stand up here?
Sure.
and present?
Good evening, everyone.
there.
Hello, how are all of you? Good. Actually, come up and introduce myself real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Stephanie. Hi again. Hi.
Hi.
And Tim. Hi, Tim, Haley.
Hi.
Yes, good to see you again, Steve. Arlen, hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to
Carl,
meet you.
hi.
I saw the chief.
I know I'm cheating. How are you? And hi, all of you.
You guys just did a unique recruiting video or something that you worked on, or is it somewhere else?
Oh, no.
Village
Dane,
of Oregon.
This is Dane County.
Dane County,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I'm
So
sorry.
I'm here representing Dane County, to just give you the overall stats for the town of Oregon, for the last year. So I'm not gonna hit on all 77 different types of calls that you have here in the town of Oregon. So I'll touch on what I thought was maybe like the double digits, we'll touch on those. So going down the line from the very start, these are all statistics combined, from the beginning of 2024 till December 31st. So in your wonderful township, you had 17 non-injury crashes, which is good. We like crashes that are generally not involving injuries. Carver steer, you had some alarms. We had a fair amount of assisting the Greene County Sheriff's Office, especially down in around the Brooklyn area. We get quite a bit of a request from them to assist them on calls. This other one, the assist agency, 61 calls, that could be helping the Village of Oregon Police Department, that could be helping probation parole, that could be helping out Child Protective Services or Human Services, Animal Services. So it kind of encompasses a whole variety of different agencies that we would help out, but that's what that number is. Going down the list, Assist Citizen, you had 49. Again, that can be someone's calling because they have a question, or we're helping out maybe a stranded motorist on the roadway or something, or we're giving someone a ride depending on their circumstances to a local gas station or something, could be a variety of things. Check properties, those, again, we have a lot of umbrella titles for a lot of the calls that we have. So maybe these are park checks. Or, you know, we get a call for a suspicious person in the area and we check the area and we don't find them. So we change the coding to a check property or something. Check person, we had 38 of those. Domestic related incidents, there were 12, 64 EMS assists, a handful of follow-up calls that we took. About a dozen frauds, and those are a variety. That is identity theft, that is someone getting someone's credit card and using it without someone's permission. We're seeing an increase of like the online scams. So being aware of that as well. Those are all kind of included in a fraud or even like a theft type of a complaint. Information calls was 19. Again, that can be just a whole variety of different things. A lot of phone calls, your biggest calls, so your number one call as far as the frequency of them are safety hazards. So there were 73 of those in the town of Oregon in 24. And that generally, I'd say of that title of type of call, as we're generally talking about disabled vehicles or like something is in the roadway, you've got a tree that fell down or something, so trees are in the roadway. Suspicious vehicles had 11, had some traffic complaints, some traffic stops, and then a fair amount of 911 unintentionals as well. We get those quite frequently throughout the county. Where people are accidentally calling 911 or they're depressing a couple of buttons on their phone and it automatically calls 911, they pocket dial, they have an Apple Watch that does it, a whole variety of things. So those are the statistics for the town of Oregon for all of last year. Does anyone have any questions? I will certainly attempt to answer.
Any that are particularly concerning to you? Any
No.
that catch your eye as, you know, there's a huge increase in this area and here's what typically is happening?
Not necessarily, not specific to your area. I would say the common ones that we see quite a bit are those 911 unintentionals. Again, we try to educate the public that if or when you do call 911 and it is truly an accident, stay on the line, verify your contact information with our dispatch center. We as deputies are still going to give you a call just to confirm and kind of double check and make sure that you're okay. But it makes it more difficult and tedious for us when you as a caller think, oh, shoot, I'm just gonna hang up and they won't know it's me. Well, you do know it's you. And then when you don't call, when they call you back and you don't answer, now that means we physically come out to make sure that you're okay. So it ties up resources. If it truly isn't an emergency, then it ties up resources for the sheriff's office. And we can't clear that particular call and go to another one until we have made contact with you or someone else just to ensure that you're okay. So that's a big one. I'd say, again, another big one that we're seeing a lot of are the frauds. Okay, people, unfortunately, it's so easy now to, you know, you get an email that you think is legitimate and you hit that link that they have included in the email and now your computer's been taken over, or, you know, someone has access to your personal information. And so it's just really important that if there are things, if you're getting unknown emails, don't click on the links that are included in those. If you're getting spam phone calls, you can kind of filter those out and don't even answer them. So that's really helpful. But no, nothing in your area that I would say is, oh my gosh, this is a big increase and we really have to address. I will say summer is coming. I hope, hopefully spring and summer are coming. That's when we tend to see an uptick in what we call theft from autos. So that is individuals who generally aren't breaking into your vehicle. They are looking for easy targets. So they're just checking your door handles to see if your doors are unlocked. And if they are rifling through your center console, your glove box, your trunk to get potentially any valuables. So we always try to no matter what time of year, but we try to remind citizens to do what we call the 9 p.m. routine or the 6 p.m. routine or whatever time you end up kind of turning in for the night. Do that routine of checking your vehicle, making sure valuables are out. We even recommend taking your garage door openers out of your vehicles, especially if it's going to stay parked outside, because then someone could potentially have access into your home through your garage door opener. But then also not only your vehicle, make sure your outside buildings, your sheds, your barns, your house itself is also secured. I'd say those are big ones, and we're going to unfortunately probably start seeing an uptick in them. The weather's getting nicer. A lot of times they're older teenagers, young adults who are involved in this type of stuff, and they're gonna be out of school here soon, you know, so sometimes those home dynamics change, which leave kids kind of running amok. And it shouldn't be, so.
Any other questions from anyone?
I was also just briefly going to go, if I have a few more minutes,
Sure.
is that okay?
Absolutely.
We've been trying to get the word out to our citizens. This is a kind of blurry, but this is a picture, we call it a beat map of what Dane County looks like. And it's not in your packet because I just brought it with me today, so I apologize, but this is a beat map. And so this breaks down by township, the different areas that law enforcement cover on our normal shift. So you all, Town of Oregon, are covered down here in what we call the William IV beat. This means that this green section here, there's 5 townships, Verona, Montrose, Primrose, and Perry. That one beat, the William IV beat, is covered by 1 deputy during each shift. We have 3 shifts at the sheriff's office. So during day shift hours, there's 1 deputy to cover all 5 townships. Same for our afternoon shift and then overnights. And it continues that same way with the rest of the beat. So you have 1 deputy to cover the William III beat, which is 4 townships. Same thing with William II, which is 5. Sometimes we hear from citizens, and understandably so, that, you know, gosh, are the cops even out? We don't ever see you. You know, we have traffic concerns in our neighborhood and we're not getting any visibility. Please know that we are listening to your concerns and we are doing our very best to get to those problem areas that you feel are of concern. Sometimes we just feel it's helpful for you all as citizens to know that we would love to be sitting in the town of Oregon for a whole 8-hour shift, but we also have to cover 4 other townships potentially. And that also includes, for example, the severity of a call. I can tell you, for example, yesterday, myself and my partners were over in Blue Mounds for a rather serious incident. And it tied up nearly the entire west side of the county. Every deputy on the west side, nearly every deputy on the west side of the county was at this one particular call in this one very small concentrated area. And that left the rest of the northwest part of Dane County. You're really hoping and praying that nothing else happens up there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We had a variety of things that happened throughout the county yesterday, and it really pulled resources. So ultimately, just wanting you to know that we hear your concerns when you do express those to us, and we certainly are trying to be out and visible whenever we can. But just know that we're spread pretty thin, and hopefully that visual can help sometimes people understand kind of how far we really are stretched thin. Yeah.
That's really helpful. What drives that amount of resources? Is it strictly the Dane County budgeting and how much they allocate? Or is it the townships and how much they allocate, you know, for the services from Dane County?
It is a lot of just data driven research and how they do that. So they do look at the call volume specific to all of these townships. And they decide based on that kind of, they've had special studies and things done and hired people in, but that's how they just go by the call volume in those areas.
The county does.
Yes.
So the townships don't really have input on the coverage for like the town of Oregon.
We do a little bit. So we haven't contracted with the sheriff's department for more than 2 years, less than 2. I think it's less than 2 years.
We've done, yeah, I think, yeah.
So we contracted for a certain number of hours of patrol time.
Above, like,
Above and beyond
Yes.
the
Yes.
residual, I'm not residual, I don't know, whatever the foundation level that you do.
Kind of a base level response.
So we did contract for additional hours because we had some, you know, speeding incidents and some other incidents, and so the town does have flexibility in how many hours. Of course, there's also the budget
Right.
that counterbalances that other thing. But the town does have some flexibility with that. So if there were, say, and we had heard from some residents on Glenway about traffic speed, really not just Glenway, but a couple other locations too. And so there was then focus on that area for a length of time.
Oh, I can see that. I mean, I'm not on Glenway, but I cross that Glenway and A there.
Sure.
And a couple of months ago, I mean, there's so many cars during rush hour coming across there. And I've discussed it with my wife. It's a little frightening. And one, a few weeks ago, SUV pulled right out in front of me and I had to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting them. They just made a mental error.
Yeah.
You know, but there's so much traffic there. That's an intersection one should be really extra careful on. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so what you were describing, Deputy, was or off, how do you go deputy or off deputy?
Call me Haley. I'm totally fine.
It was what the county is gonna do no matter what the town of Oregon requests, right? That's how you're covering.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. We have a handful of townships that don't, what it's called contracting. Yeah, we have townships that do not contract with the sheriff's office at all, but we are still taking calls for
Right.
service. So we, as the sheriff's office, although we have jurisdiction throughout the entire county, we're generally not going into those municipalities that have their own law enforcement services. So Village of Oregon, we're not gonna come into the Village of Oregon and start doing traffic stops and taking calls for service unless they request us to. And that's generally because they are tied up on other things and they absolutely need an extra hand. And that's what we're there for, is to help them out. But you can kind of see on this little map, these smaller pockets of areas are all different municipalities that have their own law enforcement agency. And so we cover everything else in between. So we do have a large area to cover, but no matter what, whether you contract with the sheriff's office or not, we absolutely make sure that you have coverage in the town of Oregon. If there's a call or something, somebody needs help, we will be there. Yep, and we can always call on, Oregon police or, Belleville, Brooklyn, Fitchburg. We call on other municipalities too to help us out if we are ever in a crunch, kind of like we were yesterday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, Deputy, thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Just in general, is there any study information about the mindset of drivers? It feels like it's.
Man, I wish.
No, it just feels like I have to get there. I don't necessarily really know what the speed limit is. I'm just gonna go, I get in my car, I don't really think about it. I'm off, whatever with my device. And I've got to do something. Is there any, because that seems to be the way. I'm on my bike and they're just like.
There's a lot of.
Coming traffic and.
There's a lot of distractions out there yep, I get that. As far as studies specifically on the driver's mind itself, I'm not aware of any. We say a lot, even as deputies who issue citations, let's say for speeding or inattentive driving or unsafe backing in a park, all these things, we could give people tickets after tickets after tickets. And it's really until they choose to change their driving behavior. I mean, me giving a ticket does not make them drive slower, you know what I mean? So it's really a will to follow the law and do what's right, So I wish you should start a study on the mind of drivers.
No.
But yeah, I'd say you just continue to drive how you know how and follow the laws, be cognizant of the speeds and other drivers around you. Be situationally aware of what's going on as you're driving. Thank you.
Deputy, thank you for juggling your schedule.
You're very welcome. Thanks for accommodating me.
Thank you.
This after this evening too. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Item number 6, Chief Linsmeyer is here, another person who juggled the schedule to be here.
No problem.
Linsmeyer or Lindmeyer?
Linsmeyer with a Z. With a Z.
I thought I saw Bob out on the Bergamot this
You
morning.
probably did, but no relation. So Linsmeyer with a Z. So, first and foremost, Town of Oregon, thank you. I probably should come up and shake everybody's hands like, the deputy did there, but I think I know everybody. We're good, Arlen, and everybody. Thank you. First and foremost, thanks for having me tonight. I know Jennifer's got our packet. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's like 19 or 20 pages. I can go on for a long time. I know they're waiting for me up in the town of Dunn, probably around 7:15. So we're going to kind of maybe take the abbreviated version, unless you'd like the longer version, Carl and board.
I would like the version that you want best.
Okay.
Would
So-
be the abbreviated version.
We'll do the abbreviated version. First and foremost, I want to introduce one of my latest hires, we hired, actually Steve in our group, we hired Mr. McDermott here. Al's a paramedic, firefighter. He has been with, if you remember the town of Madison days, he was with the town of Madison up there, worked up there as a firefighter medic for about 25 years. Town of Madison actually merged into the city of Madison a number of years ago. Al basically lives over in Verona and has, I've known Al for a long time. When he came available a few years ago, he started coming down here working for us part-time. And he kind of fits in and all that kind of thing. Al brings a whole variety of different things out in the field for us. Al is a building inspector. Basically, he can do commercial and residential where it really works good for the fire department to work with your local building inspector here in the Village of Oregon, all of our municipalities. So we've got that oversight so they can help and work each other, make sure things are compliant on the field, all that kind of thing. Then, of course, he runs a little bit of medic stuff for us. And then as we grow with some of the newest software that we are putting in with our Community Connect, Steve just saw a little bit about that in the next year. Every place that's in our fire district, every address per se, is going to have a GIS coordinate. And both on the residential side and also the commercial side, and then we'll have everybody's setbacks and length of driveways. If you think about a few years ago, we had a large fire down here off of Union, basically back in there. I think it was like about 1,600 feet off the road where we had a large diameter laid in for that particular fire in February, as I recall. All of that stuff will be on the CAD, real-time information. So our men and women, as they get in the truck and they go out there, it'll say to lay in this particular hose at this site, and you will need this many trucks, and you'll need all this kind of stuff with the pre-planning, trying to work and trying to save buildings and just be more organized when these incidents happen. So Al will be doing a lot of that stuff as we grow. One of the biggest things that I would say, I'll say this as a resident because I never know my crowd. So as a town of Oregon resident, I will tell you, I am very happy with the curbside pickup. I think it is tremendous in many ways. So first I'll tell you, it's lower than what I used to be paying when I had to contract it with myself. And second, just in general, I can tell you as your fire chief, I have a lot less fires and different incidents and people burning stuff than I did years ago. So that I believe that I know that was a very hot topic and some in this crowd probably would disagree with me. But overall, I think it's a good move for the municipality and all that kind of thing. I will just say that many times over. I think, Ro, you and I talked about it too. It's just tremendous thing. Occasionally, I'll just tell you, we still get some, usually our ag partners, some of our farms and those people, we're still seeing some of the plastic wrappers that are on the bales that'll go across the field. We still find people are burning those. And then we deal with them appropriately and all that kind of stuff. But we don't try to be the bad enforcement agency, but at the same time, we're seeing that stuff still happens. Doesn't matter if it's in the town of Oregon, town of Donner, town of Rutland, it happens. Pretty much the burning in the village is pretty much they're, much more laid back. They eliminated the burning of leaves a few years ago, so there's no leaf burning in the village of Oregon. That's all curbside pickup and all that kind of stuff. Going back to, any questions so far? Going back to, Al gave everybody a copy of this. Jennifer has this. It's on our website and all that kind of stuff. And it's basically statistics. A lot of statistics. You heard the deputy talk about statistics and all that kind of stuff. I'll just kind of like highlight the big stuff. And the big stuff is basically little Village of Oregon. And then you take our 3 townships. We are producing about 1,900 calls a year out of that fire district that we have down here in town right now. And out of that are of our 10 full-time people now, as of this first of the year of 2025, and our part-time people, we are generating about 5 calls a day at the paramedic level for our EMS, and then of course fire. And a lot of times we're staffing 1 or 2 ambulances, people come and go and all that kind of stuff. If you really want to know what our highest percentage call is, basically it's falls in the homes for our EMS. We're doing a lot of picking up fall folks, a lot of times transportation for those people to the hospital, that kind of stuff. About 300 calls there a year out of that 1,900 calls, kind of on page basically 12 in this particular document. The other thing of noteworthy, and I think you've heard me say this before, is that we are a level B team, meaning that we have a lot of men and women that come here. that work for us for 1 to 3 years and get hired someplace as a firefighter medic, someplace else in the country. Last year, again, we had 7, 8 people that were successful in doing so and being able to make that happen. So good for us, but also bad for us. They're there for a long, for a short time. They get to know the roads, they get to know where they're going. They might even know some of, some of our folks that get picked up a couple times, that kind of stuff. They get to know folks and then they get hired someplace and they're gone. And then we start over. The good part for Oregon is usually on a monthly basis here, we probably get between 5 to 8 people every month that apply to be a firefighter or an EMT at our Oregon district here. So that's pretty fortunate for that kind of stuff as we go through 30 years and all that kind of things. Kind of like changing on page 13, again, I'm talking about the public contacts and stuff of that nature. We are very much committed to the fire district. Of course, we do a lot of stuff in the village of Oregon just because of the population. We're in the schools, but this lists out all of our community contacts and that kind of stuff. And we look at everything as far as spending time trying to prevent fires, trying to prevent anything from happening in the household with young students, young people, that kind of stuff. We had over 14,000 contacts last year out of our little operation in Oregon. If you think about that, that's a lot of contacts in 365 days a year. Any questions so far? Again, we talk about the community risk reduction on page basically 14. Again, this is stuff where with the new program that we're going to be putting in, you can actually give us, there's a couple different things, and the deputy knows where I'm going to with this here. Now, if you wanted to give me a code for your house and that kind of stuff, we put it in the CAD. There's some layers of security, but at the same point, any one of us that have CAD access, that information is throughout. This community connect on the residential side, you can log in yourself. You can put that stuff sitting there. It can sit there in a private server, and it only comes up through the dispatch and on our CADs or on our MDCs when the call happens. So a fire chief driving around in Oregon just can't go scrolling through the CAD and find combinations to get into something. It will be specific to the incident when we are responding and that kind of stuff. So it's just some upgrades and some of the security measures that we take place. Steph.
Does that include something like how many people are expected to live there, or like pets or
All the
anything like
above. You
that?
can tell us how many pets you got there. You can tell us the code for the front door. You can say that you hit a key someplace else, which we don't recommend, but the different things, but all of that kind of stuff you can tell us.
Okay, thanks.
Secondary phone numbers and all that kind, and that's gonna be, we already have that on the business side, but now we're gonna be building this out for the residential side too. We get that somewhat already when, when our health start to fail, that kind of stuff, we put notes to the CAD, we put Knox boxes on houses so we can get in and just, so we don't have to break doors or take glass and different things of that nature. We do that to some extent, but this will be an upgrade to that. Good question. Steve?
When do you think that'll be ready for the residents to take advantage of?
I am hoping that we have that all up. The GIS stuff has been loaded in the CAD and through Dane County and everything already. I'm hoping that by year end, we should have that part of it ready to go. So probably if we can really lay this out, some of my thinking was, I know you guys send out, I think, Jennifer, an annual newsletter, right?
With the tax.
Like with the taxes?
With the taxes.
So maybe we can have something ready to go with that, and tell people how to do this, kind of a cut sheet with some directions, and be able to like streamline that and bring that into being right around the first of the year. That probably would be beneficial for Chief McDermott to go that direction. So it's all about rolling that stuff out, making it work for the community. So excellent question. Anything else on that? Then, of course, we've got the EMS division in there. We've done a lot of things. As we've been now at the paramedic level for what I think we're going on our third year with our paramedic stuff. We're doing some intercepts, different places around Stoughton, just anything basically from Oregon south. We're in Rock County some days, that kind of stuff, and helping out wherever we need to. That's been working out very well, that kind of thing. Again, if you look at on page 16, I'll make sure my bifocals are working here. On page 16, From our training division, these are the numbers that is hard to keep up with. As we get these new people with recruits and everything else, you can come in, you can have a firefighter with a, you know, an EMT license, you can have these bare minimum things that they went through. And again, bare minimum, when I say that, that's like 6 months or a year of class, but now you gotta bring them in and you gotta get them signed off of your equipment, all your protocols and all that kind of stuff. So you have all of this ride time and all this field time that you need to get people prepped for the field. Our training division are doing a tremendous job trying to keep up with this turnover of all these new people all the time. It's an ongoing window. And this is very taxing for the full-time staff and for our other senior people that are around and trying to bring these people up to speed and all those kind of things, if you can imagine that. So, you know, I've been asked different places and how do you get your arm around that? Well, the only way you get your arm around that is by hiring more full-time people. But the more full-time people come with dollars and cents and price. And when I say firefighter medic now with a full benefit package, you're looking at real close to $100,000, just a little bit shy of $100,000 with a family plan and paying salaries. And that's working 2,496 hours a year. You're at $100,000 a person. And it comes with a hefty price tag. Our part-time people, we have made tremendous strides with that. Thank you, Town of Oregon and Commission people over the years. Again, when I first came here in 2016, after you guys hired me being a consultant and coming in, we basically were at like 6 something an hour, which whatever was the minimum was in 2016. And now our people are somewhere in the sliding scale of about 10 to as much as 2350 for our medics. And again, in the big scale of things, competition is everything, especially for your skilled medics and your different people. Those numbers just keep going and keep going. So those kind of things. Any questions?
Chief, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that, I know you just gave us a ballpark of that 100,000 for like benefits and everything. Do you think that is competitive for like keeping them longer? Or do you think they're still gonna maintain that like we're a, whatever you called it, a level B where?
So the level, when I say the level B, keep in mind, that's our part-time, that's our part-time folks.
Full-time people. You
That's
think
not my full-time.
That's my question.
That's not my full-time. As far as our full-time people, we are very competitive. Our folks are in the, what we call 311A. It's a subset of the City of Madison Fire Department. So they are union members, and we look at the competitive wages between Verona, you know, Middleton, everybody on the peripheral. You look at that, you kind of set them accordingly. And our men and women are currently, we settled a contract about a year ago, Steve, wasn't it? We had a 4-year contract. Took us a year to agree, but we did get it finally. And then I think we go through 26 and then we'll be going into another contract. And competitive on the peripheral for Dane County in the state of Wisconsin is what I will tell you.
That's wonderful.
And those numbers are basically driven by others that are around us at the same kind of operations that we are currently running here. So combination departments, not all full-time, that kind of stuff. Of course, City of Madison department is one of the premium pay departments. If people get on there, those are the premium pay jobs and that kind of stuff for the men and women to get into that. Our level B folks, when I say our level B, are our part-time folks. They're here for 1 to 3 years. They're basically in the minors. They're doing that kind of work. We are on the lower end of the pay. On that end of it, I can tell you on the peripheral, if you look at the other part-time people, we are probably between, with our medics, we're probably $3 an hour less than some other places. With our A's and our B's, meaning licensure of EMS, we're probably in the same category, that kind of stuff. What we get is a lot of doctor students, a lot of PAs, and a lot of different people that are in the medical school that come and work for us that are there again between 3-4 years. They're doing a residency. They want to get emergency medical experience in the field. Very beneficial for us. We get these folks up and running, and then then they go to this other full-time career and they say goodbye to Oregon and send me Christmas cards every year and tell me about when they're having kids and grandkids as I get older in this career. So good things, but at the same time, sometimes discouraging.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that whole thing is to keep to stay in a good mind and keep mentoring our young people to say that this is a good thing for Oregon. You should not be at all embarrassed of it because people come and go and all that kind of stuff. But it is more taxing for any of the season members, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Steve, you have a question or? Nope. Last year, one of our larger capital purchases, again, we bought a used. And when I say used, it was in excellent condition. We bought a used squad. We needed to replace a 20-some-year-old last year's squad. If we would have bought that new, as the Berman, so Gene Berman, that you guys know from the past, that kind of stuff, been around Oregon a long time. Him and some others basically headed the committee for me. They looked at all over. We bought used for, new would have been over 800,000. We bought new for just about 300 and some thousand, $350,000. And the vehicle was in Minto shape. When I say Minto, it was 5,000 miles on the vehicle. So somebody on a larger place basically changed their mission and their vision. And that's the vehicle that's here now, and that'll last us 20 years and do what we need to do. And that's basically all hazards. That's got all of our water suits on for swift and open water, our boats for ice, all of our hazmat stuff, all of our containment, all of our ropes, our pulleys, all of the special different stuff that basically is basically laid out there, and that's on page. Oh, Casey put that on page 18 for a couple pictures, and I know you got the black and white version there, doesn't look too good. Go to our website, you can see, you can find this whole annual report on there, you get a much better view. So sorry about the pictures and the quality of that part of it. What else do I want to tell you, Bill, of the Township of Oregon? I got this last page in here, but I'll just hit it a little bit because just so that I keep everybody in the same page, basically what's going to happen with the current fire station in the future and all that other kind of stuff. You've probably seen some different articles. We put some press releases out and that kind of stuff. Last year, the commission and all of our powers to be from the 3 townships and also the Village of Oregon basically put some money aside from our capital plans and hired a consultant. That's basically just started. So we'll see where that all goes and see what the future brings for Oregon. Is probably the safe way of leaving it right now. So I know we've got a lot of, as a taxpayer myself in the village or in the town of Oregon, I have concerns about where this is all going to go. I think all of us do. And of course, the things that I tell people is this, and this is one of the things I remind people of. Let's remind ourselves about what we agreed upon and where we currently are. We had very little staffing back in 2016. Our staffing has tremendously improved. We had part-time people. We went from a volunteer, what I would call a 1720 NFPA department, going towards a 1710 department, which is more full-time people and be able to provide service. That is very dicey to do when you have limited or no funds. And we've done it together collectively and we made it work. We used to only have 1 ambulance on. Now I got 1.5 ambulances on. Most of the time I have 2. We're being able to capture both the primary and the secondary calls. If you look at our statistics that Steve always sees on a monthly basis from our operation. And we're getting to the point where we almost need the 3rd ambulance, or we need to work with our neighbors and try to figure out how we have the 3rd ambulance, because it takes us 45 minutes to turn an ambulance around when we got to go to Madison on the west side to UW Hospital and get back with the traffic. Because the police department don't give us I'm joking, of course, doesn't give us a guided, tour back to Oregon.
Yeah.
But it just takes a long time to move these things around. Those are the things. What's going to happen with this fire station and all that kind of thing? I think the biggest thing, like I tell everybody, is I tell this to the Village of Oregon, I tell it to different people. We have to think about this. We all know money is tight, all that other kind of stuff. We just have to think about things and we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it. First, we've got to identify what we have and what we need and all that kind of stuff, so that people can say, well, Fire Chief Linsmeyer says, this, that, or the other thing. It's not just about what Fire Chief Linsmeyer says. I can tell you, we need men and women and we need equipment in the field. That's the thing. What I look at and what I've always told our commission is basically, I believe our townships and the people here expect services the same as the city of Madison or really close to it. Anything other than that probably is not acceptable. And that's just, I kind of leave it as the fire station thing. And I know Jennifer and Steve and Carl want us to come back and talk about the fire station at another meeting. And we will do that very shortly, whatever you guys would like us to do. We'll come over and talk about it. But we got a lot of moving parts, they're exciting parts, and all that kind of stuff, and then we just have to deal with when the pagers go off and the emergencies happen. I'll leave it there, I'll just take some questions and wherever you go, wherever anybody wants to go, we'll talk. Anybody? So I will come back with one other thing. I will come back with, I think, Parker, you and I have been talking about this a little bit, just about what's happened out in California with the amount of grasses, that kind of stuff, trying to contain that, trying to burn some stuff down, controlled wise, trying to prevent things like that from happening in larger areas, that kind of stuff. I will tell you, this spring, we have had a tremendous amount of grass fires. Our first ones were the 14th or 13th of January, where somebody turned their back in a big field over the town of Dunn, and it burnt 60 some acres off and burning in some other people's property. She was very, again, embarrassed and all the above, but you cannot turn your back on it. It is dry already. I don't know where it's going to go this summer or anything else, global warming, whatever you want to say the cause is. I'm not going to go that direction because there's different people tell you different things. I can just tell you statistic wise, we burnt over 300 acres. That's over a half a square mile basically this year. That we have been out putting out grass fires in different places, not only in the town of Oregon, different places. Somehow we need to, I know the village of Oregon is looking at a very strategic plan, trying to start looking at the Lerner Park folks. We were out with Arlen and the group here a few weeks ago. We had a good time. We burnt off how many acres that day to help?
15.
So we did a little bit of stuff there. We did some things for the school. We did some stuff with the sportsman club over on help me right by Copkeys. Sandhill, thank you. That kind of stuff, just trying to prevent some of this stuff from happening. And I know the village is looking at it, that they're going to put things in place to try to start burning in a rotation to certain areas, trying to keep that vegetation down, that fuel vegetation, that fire load as we call it, that kind of stuff. I think I mentioned this to Jennifer, maybe Arlen too. I can't remember, maybe Steve, but about fire-wise communities, I really think the town of Oregon with our spread and that kind of stuff, if you look at fire-wise communities and some of the things, some of the objectives they have out there to help people protect their homes, to give us a fighting chance instead of having vegetation right up to them, that kind of stuff. There's some things to do. There's different types of siding. There's different types of shingles you put on your house, that kind of stuff. I think that's something you might want to maybe look at and see if that's something that the town would like to do, and planning commission or something else that you have going here. Your safety group, I think you got a safety group too, don't you? For town of Oregon?
Traffic safety.
Road and traffic safety.
Okay,
Well, there's an emergency,
yeah, isn't there emergency,
it's, there's a committee too.
emergency planning committee or something you
I
guys
don't
got going?
remember what we call it, but
Yeah.
yes is the answer. I just.
So just some of that stuff and just trying to prevent some things. And again, the last thing I will just say is make sure your addresses are marked. We can see your addresses. Sometimes both of us, the sheriff's department, no matter our ambulances, whatever it might be, rural addressing is sometimes gets to be really challenging as we go in one driveway and then there's a whole bunch of little spurs off and you don't know which one it is. Of course, if the house is on fire, that's a whole different individual thing. But if it's the middle of the night and you look for the lights and the ambulance goes to this one or that one, that kind of thing. So that's where I would leave it. Any questions, anyone?
All right, Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Plenty of time to get to town of Dunn.
We are in good shape.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you?
Next up on, for item 7 is Grove Park, some of Anderson Park friends.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the board for the opportunity to give you an update on what's been going on in Anderson Farm County Park. Considering that this is really almost a township park because of the close proximity to the town of Oregon, and we certainly have a lot of our members of Anderson Park Friends. So it's a local park. We're proud of it. And I get a chance to be able to give the report tonight, and it's an honor to be able to come and report that last year in 2024, we had 2,300 hours of volunteer time. This is a dynamic organization, and it's dynamic because we have such great participation from the surrounding townships as well as the village of Oregon. A good example is this last weekend, we had our Girl and Boy Scout project. So the scouts came to the Schultz Forest, and they, for 60 minutes, they moved logs. A lot of the logs were about this large in diameter and 3 and 4 foot lengths. If that wasn't enough, then we sent them to the food pantry garden, and we were lucky enough to get a cubic yard of donated compost. And the kids had so much energy. I was jealous, to tell you the truth. They had so much energy that they literally spread half of that pile in buckets and with shovels. Our tractor broke down for some reason. They still kept to it, and we're ahead of schedule for our food pantry garden. We had 20 scouts, we had 4 parents, we had 10 of our own volunteers, so that when you look at the 4 hours that each person put in, you can see that the number of hours add up quickly, and it's to the benefit of everybody to have a resource like this within the community. I'm going to speak from the green handout and go down the list and hit a few highlights that are connected. Many of you know us for our forest and prairie restoration efforts. We're continuing our efforts in the Schultz Forest. We're starting to work with the red pine trees. Some of these need trimming. We're probably about 95% finished with the Schultz Forest restoration. We do have plans for a variety of the vegetation zones in there in terms of bushes and planting additional trees. We've planted over 40 trees so far in the last 5 years in there. Many folks see us taking things out, but I'm here to say we do put things back in, and that it's really creating a great habitat for birds. And if you're a bird watcher, this is a great place locally to go look for woodpeckers and other types of birds. The West Woods, this is a parcel of land that it is immediately west of the railroad tracks. If you go underneath Locust Grove, there's over 150 acres there. We have a 45-acre forest. This is probably a 15 to a 17-year project. This is not disturbing to us. We're jumping right in. We started it last year. We're making some great progress. So we want to restore the forest with an oak woodland at the west end and have it transition to an oak savanna at the east end. And this would be to restore the forest, of course, but we'd like to add another 1.5 miles of hiking trails. Now, access to that part of the park is problematic because there are no really access points. There are no parking lots there. There is a way to go through the ditch right next to the railroad trestle, and we're going to be working with the township to try to install a couple culverts and put some grading and some stone in there to be able to make it easier and safer, because one of the access points is right up against the tree line of the railroad right away. And we've already had probably 5 or 6 near misses in terms of accidents within the last year because of the fact people don't know that we're working in that parcel. At the same time, as you can see, it's almost a total blind spot going out into that. So we're going to work on that for safety purposes, as well as to restore the forest and to create extra hiking trails. I did mention that I can't come here without mentioning our dog park. We're extremely proud of this. We're continually getting compliments from individuals in other parts of the county. I met somebody from Middleton about 3 weeks ago. They came from Middleton to our dog park because it's perceived as one of the best dog parks in Dane County. It's a great place to be able to walk the dog. It's really a community meeting place that on the weekends at almost any time in the late morning, early afternoon, there's 20 to 30 people plus dogs at there. It's a popular site. The trails, we created what we refer to as the Cowpath Trail. This was a double tree line that comes away from Union Road, and it's immediately opposite Pat Anderson's driveway. If you know where Pat lives on the Union Road. This was probably about a third of a mile type of extra hiking trail. So we're proud. We cleaned this up, removed stumps, graded that. We're putting grass in. Going to be a great addition this summer. The next topic is that of the food pantry garden. I've been involved with hunger and food pantries for probably close to 50 years. I started a number of them in the 1970s. Now there's over 940 food pantries in the state of Wisconsin. This hunger situation is going to get worse. It is going to get worse in Wisconsin. There are 3 major federal agricultural programs that are getting cut completely. There are problems with Social Security checks that are not getting delivered. There's many people who live paycheck to paycheck. And if they don't have that money, they're going to be coming to the emergency food pantry that we have locally. We are going to work with them. We're setting a goal of trying to raise 4,700 pounds of fresh produce so that we can deliver it to the pantry. We grow between 18 and 22 different varieties of vegetables. This year, we were lucky to be able to get a partnership agreement with the Still Point Farm. They are out just west of Brooklyn. They're a wedding destination center as well as they have a flower farm. They're allowing us to use their greenhouse and their germination station. So we've expanded our cold weather crops and we're going to expand our peppers and tomatoes this next week. We're going to kick off the planting of onions and cold weather crops a week from today. So that'll be on Earth Day, and we invite you to come out to work with us on that. The jumping down to youth education, you can see we have a variety of things listed there. The Maple Syrup Day is one of the most popular ones. We work with second graders in Brooklyn and Oregon. We worked with over 120 second graders this particular year. This session is led by Gene Berman. Many of you might know him as a retired firefighter. Gene does an outstanding job. The kids love it and very successful. And it's surprising that even with a group like that, on a show of hands, there's about 15 or 20 kids that have never tasted maple syrup. So that we provided maple syrup to the teachers. They took it back. They served it with ice cream. And I think there was a lot of happy second graders after that particular field trip. The other thing to mention is Arbor Day. It's sort of a somber topic for us to talk about. We have done Arbor Day educational programs with the Rome Corner sixth graders, and we've done this for about 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 years. And we were dependent on Jeff Olson and the Arbor Systems business. And many of you know Jeff. It's sad to report that he passed away recently on St. Pat's Day. We've been working with the family and some other organizations to create a memorial for Jeff. If you're interested, we have a donation page on our website. We're still accepting donations for the memorial that we will be placing in Anderson Farm County Park. And that it most likely will be a memorial bench or a type of a tree with a type of a plaque. So we're going to work with the Dane County Parks Department to do this. Jeff is just one of those business community people, just donated a ton of time to help us get started. He was there on day one and continually week in, week out, always was supportive of us, as well as getting his business. Arbor Day was instructed by Jeff plus 5 of his business employees. So that when you think about that, a 3-hour event, Jeff had like probably 15 hours worth of time with his business just to help the 6th graders. And we would always serve about 6 60 or 70 sixth graders at that event. The other thing to mention under recreation events, I passed out some of our flyers. We want to invite you to the Spring Festival. So Carl, this is your chance to dress up as a fairy and come out and meet the other fairies.
That's a great opportunity.
This is a great program for kids 2 to 9 years of age. We work with the Oregon Brooklyn Optimus. They operate a Go Fly a Kite station. There'll be free kites, so bring your grandkids, bring your kids. You can fly a kite. Some of the individuals specifically went out and bought a kite so they could come to the event. So we're saying a prayer that we can get some good wind, not like we've had recently, like a little bit better wind situation. This is always a lot of fun. We have ferry doors. We're one of the unique parks in the Midwest to have a collection of ferry doors. We do this as a way to motivate parents to bring the kids out and make a game of looking for the ferry doors. It's an interesting way to get kids out. We want to get them away from the TV and iPhones and get them out and appreciate nature. Going on to small scale agriculture. We could go on for about 20 minutes with this. We started this concept about 5 years ago with an agricultural well. We put in a irrigation system. Our organization has helped raise over $40,000 to get to that particular milestone. We started with 12 acres of cultivation. We have 23 plots of land. They're 1/4 acre each. And that people lease these from our partner, and that they can grow whatever they'd like. So you could come and lease it, grow flowers, and then go to the Saturday morning farmer's market and sell your flowers. And so we encourage businesses. We want to work with small businesses in that area. We're looking to expand this to growers who would like 2 or 3 or 4 acres of land. Last year we had 2, and I think this year we're going to have 4 growers. If you can envision the field at the junction of A and Union Road, there's a large field south of the old farmhouse. That's 24 acres. That's all targeted for agriculture. The Pat Anderson and Lyman Anderson farmhouse, we're starting efforts to renovate that, and we'll be able to provide more information to you on that a little bit later. It needs repair. It's going to be a costly project. We're going to be doing some serious fundraising to make that into what we refer to as an agricultural and food education center. We want to get kids connected to agriculture in different formats. It'll be a small meeting type of a facility for groups of 8 to 15 people. We have a large kitchen. We're going to make this semi-commercial so that we can do food demonstration and food skill type of training for kids at that. At the bottom here as I close, I do want to mention security at the park. We do work closely with Dane County. The Dane County sheriffs provide security for this, as you've heard them do that. But also I want to point out that the county provides rangers, and rangers are assigned to each individual park. Each ranger will visit the park at least 5 times on an average during the course of the day. And of course, they will respond to special requests and incidents. We'll get things like, for instance, we responded to a on-site fire problem, but we also get requests for assistance with aggressive dogs in the dog park. The rangers will actually go an extra step, and we had one problematic situation, and the way that they resolved that, the ranger actually found out who the individual was and visited at their home, had a conversation, and we didn't have problems after that. So please feel free and secure when you come out to the park. The park's open until 10 p.m. Each day. Some of our organizational things, we're in good financial standing. Our membership is about 189. Now, if I could get everybody in this room to join, you could bump us up over 200 and we'd meet that milestone. We do have a number of you who are already members, so thank you for being a member. We do business planning techniques to achieve some of the things, simple things like a land management plan, and we actually go to the detail, like the Schultz Forest, we have a vegetation plan just for that 17-acre forest. So that, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. You can follow us on the Oregon Observer and Facebook. We'd love to have you join us, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. Are there any questions?
Questions for Ro? Want some water? Oh, you've got some.
Yeah, I got a little bit here.
What you,
Go ahead, Joe. Tim, go ahead, and then this gentleman.
me first?
Go ahead.
One of your comments that made me think, something about the park rangers.
Yes.
That there used to be, and maybe there still is, a position called like town constable that used to check in on things. Is that still?
No, it was eliminated a couple, 3 years ago.
Replaced with the contracted Dayton County Sheriff's.
Right. Okay.
Jim.
Ro, you, in the past, in the Schultz Woods, actually, there was some rustic camping that the Boy Scouts used to do. And
Yes.
I know that there is a piece of property identified on the farm property, for future camping. Any idea when that is,
This would be in the, what we refer to as the West Woods that's listed here. We had a camping outing with the Scouts in 2023, and they passed on it in 2024. We have a designated site for that, and the Scouts helped us create a foundation. And then when they leave, they adjust it so it's not viewed as a identified campsite that anybody could do that to. We don't make that available to public information.
okay.
Yeah. You may see in our master plan, it makes a reference to that, but our master plan now is 12 years old. It's in need of revision. There's a reference in there to a pond and fishing. We have no plans to create ponds there. There's references to equine trails. We have no plans to put equine trails in that part of the park for a variety of reasons. So it's still functional in many respects, but at the same time, 12 years has passed, and we're a little bit smarter about the situation, and its feasibility and resources come into play here. So,
Any other questions? No, thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed being here.
Okay, item number 8 is Arlen and 5-year road plan.
If you notice in the packet, on page, starting on page 27, you'll see the 5-year road plan that we have been working to implement as to cycling through or planning and cycling through the road projects. One of the mechanisms that or guidance that we're doing is that to help with the budget, we're having major projects every other year where we will be tearing the road up, putting it back down. Maybe that's a little bit too dramatic, but anyway, major work, be accurate. And then every other year, we have minor projects, which would be more seal coating, maintenance type projects. Using measured loan programs, we're also trying to make sure that we have a leveled out tax levy for the town, so that things are not a surprise. You will see on that the 2025, we are doing Raven Oaks. As mentioned, in the following year, there's going to be a number of seal coat things. Things that are coming up that are not on the immediate plan But we have to be looking at, we've been looking at grants, particular to be looking at Judd Road. Lightly traveled, but it is getting in really tough shape. On Bellbrook, we have a bridge that is teetering. It still is considered safe by inspection, but it is getting to the point, it's score 1 percentage point, 1 or 2 percentage points away from fix this, block it off. And so that's going to be a very large investment, but we have we would have an opportunity for a grant to be rebuilding that bridge. We are looking for as many possibilities for grants to be helping us pay for the road work. For describing what it is that we have 37 miles of town roads. There are about half that many miles of county roads. We are not, about 17 miles of county roads that we are not responsible for. Dane County is. And we have a number of roads that we are sharing with adjacent municipalities, whether it's Montrose, Pittsburgh, Town of Brooklyn, and the Village of Oregon. So we'll be working with them, having that scheduling of work done to be doing the mutual financing with them. Roads are one of the primary responsibility of, of every town to be taking care of the roads. That's what we're here for. And the Road and Safety Committee has been formed, and we have been blessed with a great deal of talent within the town to be having membership on this committee. Yes, I guess be open for questions. And we're about to, yes, Ro.
My compliments. This is one of the questions as a resident in talking with neighbors is, what is the village, or excuse me, what is the township doing or planning about the roads? This gives you a general outline in terms of where is my road fit into the big picture. So I like that idea. Striping, I'm wondering, had you considered striping on Sun Valley Parkway? And I'm thinking about the elevation change that's just east of the Raven Oaks subdivision. There's a major S turn there. And that's a place for near accidents, and as a layperson, striping would seem to help that somewhat so that we don't get people encroaching on the center line. And it's more problematic in fog days and nights.
We have never had striping in the town itself. We are having striping this coming year. So look for striping on a combination of Netherwood, Fish Hatchery Road from D to Lincoln, part of Lincoln, part of Hillcrest, south of A. And this is an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting, we're going to look at it, is recognize that having some striping adds to the safety and gives some road cues, helps slow people down. So
Sounds good.
It's a start. We have about 5 miles that we're looking at striping. We have 37 miles of town roads, so we have to pick and choose. And of course.
Sounds good. Lincoln, I think, would be probably the most obvious one. It's probably the most heaviest traveled road, and it's got the elevation and blind spots, when you come over the crest and stuff. So I like that concept a lot.
So we'll also try and coordinate it with road work. So that we don't stripe it one year and then cover it and seal coat it the next year and obliterate that investment. So we have to coordinate that.
Any other questions for Arlen? No, thank you very much. Was there?
No, I guess I was just to say you had questions on the roads and.
Well, I just was wondering earlier about CC is so rough, I think, between Fish Hatchery Road and the village of Oregon. I travel that a lot, but you said that's being done with.
Yes,
the county.
the county is working cooperatively with the village, so the two of them are getting together and. That they have to get their funding coordinated to get it done, and kind of made it a little bit longer timeline than if it was just the county, they could have just done their part, but. The village is pacing themselves, and they're also doing M&M Wolf Street over the next couple of years, so the village is. And the village and the county are working cooperatively on there, and they're trying to phase it so that all the funding works out, but it just takes.
You also notice on page 29, there is an investigation. Ro was talking about the Logan Road and the railroad bridge. We were looking at that, and then turns out Anderson Park was looking at that too. So there's all opportune, there are problems there that need to be addressed. So there's things that we are flagging. There's a lot of work to do. And the work that is being done in Raven Oaks, we're counting that is like a 30-year investment to be pulverizing that, getting a good base and getting a good surface on it. It will not last 30 years. It will have to be maintained. It will have to be sealed a number of times during that 30 years. So you count 30 years, every 2 years. So every 15 times we have major projects. We have 37 miles of road. We have to do a little over 2 miles of major road work every other year. And then has to be some accounting for, oops, the road blew up something. There's always something, or the bridge at Bellbrook. That's a time bomb that we're not looking forward to.
Another question is, with road construction, is there consideration to put, as you see, some roads have bike lanes on one side or both?
We would have to widen the roads significantly. We have 20 and 22 foot wide roads. We would have to add a 4 to 5 foot bike lane on one side or the other. So now that starts multiplying things out quite a bit.
Cost issue, and
it's a cost issue.
Yeah. It's always funny by us in Raven Oaks, where we come off of, this is the northwest corner of the township where the Badger State Trail is. And it's where Sales Trail and Purcell have an intersection. And you'll see bicyclists come on the asphalt pavement from this Fitchburg. They won't go on the gravel bike trail. They'll make the jog, and then they come up Sales Trail and go down that way. A constant point of discussion with people. And when you get the clubs, sometimes the clubs will have 4 and 5 riders across, in alignment, and it doesn't pay to try to pass them. Many of us go 25 miles an hour just for safety's sake. Because many of them are talking. I mean, we see them with, you think people are in their cars with the iPhones. They're on it with the bicycles too.
And single file is supposed to be what it's supposed to be. So, what was the question about the mentality of drivers?
Yes.
And the distractions? Yes.
We're not all that way.
All right, sounds great, thanks, Arlen. Let's go on to the budget comparison with
Okay. But starting on page 30 of your packet, you'll see, the first column is the 2024 budget. The middle column is the 2024 actual, and then the last column is the 2025 current year budget. That start with revenues and then end with expenditures. We will have, our loan balances will be on page 33. We have Baker Tilly does compilation audit for us, and page 34 will be our, Stephanie will go into it, but there will be our cash balances and their letter, and I'm just going to go over some notes while you guys can review that. In our revenues, you will see that our special assessments were a little higher than what we predicted. So we started our curbside. We had prior year payments, so someone who would have paid their property taxes late will sometimes collect them in a year later. A conversion fees, that's when someone takes farmland into residential. They pay basically a penalty for doing that. We collect that. Fire dues, there's a little increase, all of that money, it's just a pass through. We collect it and we distribute it back to the fire department. DNR PILT, that's payment in lieu of taxes. That is the DNR reimburses us for lands that do not get property tax. Under the license and permits and revenues, the franchise fee, excuse me. This is people who have cable. They the cable companies give us a percentage. You'll see a slight decrease. Why I noted that was this might be an overall decrease that we'll start to see as people probably stop subscribing to cable, just with the different methods of how you can watch TV. Building permits were still strong. The zoning and permit fees, this would be people who are applying for rezones. So there was an increase. This would also attribute to why we saw that a conversion fee increase, people who are rezoning to build new houses. Obviously we went to curbside, so there was a decrease in what the revenues we collected at the torque. Intergovernmental charges, we, as a township, we are the ones who put in shared notices for elections for all the presidential that we did in 2024, and we'll just collect those from the other municipalities and they pay us in 25. Obviously, we still benefited from higher interest rates in 2024. We sold an F-550 truck. We bought one and we sold it in 24. We got some cash back from a credit card. The surplus funds applied, it was just a move to a different account, which was under other financing sources. We had one new long-term debt. It was 115. That 115 loan was for some fire department capital equipment. We borrowed some money for some pavement markings. Unfortunately, they were unable to do that pavement marking in 24. So that was due to staffing at the county that was going to do that for us. So we're going to have that done in 25. They had to do some culvert work for Raven Oaks, which they let that sit. Our fund balance, we had some money from some loan funds that we used for capital equipment for the for Oregon Fire Department, and we had bought a new F-550, and then we had some ARPA funds that we used for the remodel and some park funds that we used. Under expenditures, we did not use as much in legal fees that we expected. There was a vision statement that we did not get done in 2024, that got done obviously in 25. Where we had more increase in election worker salaries, that was just, we had no in-person voting, we had some help. We had a roof leak, so our general buildings and plant has a little bit higher. We used the ARPA funds for the town hall. We finished using that in 2024. Our police supplemental police services, that extra 4 hours we talked about earlier, that cost was a little bit lower. That fire dues, like I said, that's a pass. We get it in, we pass it directly onto the fire departments. DANCOM, that is just higher, that's overall higher. Our highway equipment insurance was a little bit higher. We've gotten some new equipment, which causes our premiums to go up. It was a lighter year, so our utilities went down. We didn't have as much snow, so our fuel for our vehicles, we had a decrease in that, and then our salt, obviously we had decrease. We do have to fulfill our contract, so we did that in 2025. Our culverts increased because, like I said, we did the culverts for Raven Oaks this year. We did a little bit more road work just a little bit more in 2024. Our cemetery, we had a delayed billing issue. We had the cemetery surveying done, but the surveyor didn't bill us, so. And our total indebtedness was $706,926.07. Our fund balance was $398,642. And the $336 was fund balance we used, and I described that prior, which was a combination of some loan funds and the ARPA funds and some park expenses.
Any questions on that section, folks? Rob?
Is there any potential risk from state or federal funds that might get cut off that we cannot foresee at this point in time?
The only thing that I'm not sure about is whether there is anything that's with a state, where it passes through the state. And I mean, we don't necessarily have funding, we don't have federal funding directly. Depending how you define it, you might have some state funding. So it's an unknown fund, so I'm afraid.
Okay, that's fine.
Excuse me. Jennifer, anything else on that one? No. Okay, and Stephanie, financial report.
Okay, the account balances you'll find on 38, there is, I think on this, unless you guys have questions, there's only really one notable decrease, and that's with the LGIP highway equipment account. And like Jennifer mentioned, there was 100,000 taken out of that and spent on the Ford F-550. That was also put in there in 2023 and then spent in 2024. So that you'll see why that just decreases. Most of these other accounts just go up based on the interest that we've received. In our general tax account, that fluctuates so much just depending on, especially in December, how many taxes we've collected at the date that at the 31st of 2024. And that's different from year to year. So that looks higher, but a lot of that comes out in about a couple weeks after we pulled that report. So do you guys have any questions on account balances? No? Okay. So I just have a couple notes, and that's the interest rates for LGIP stayed over 5% majority of 2024, started declining in November, but even in March of 2025, we're still at 4.39 in those. So there, we did see an increase maintained an increase of interest back, or interest earned in all of 2024, basically. We did start that online payment system in the spring of 2024, so it was here for tax collection. It is most frequently used by building permits. We've had building permits, dog permits, our dog licenses, driveway permits and such. People have been enjoying it, and we did have a handful of tax payments, but I would say it would be a little under a dozen people that pay there through that system. The fee is 2.95%, so. The impact fee account, now, you see in 2024 that remains the same. Because that money was not taken out of there in 2024, it's taken out of there and moved in 2025. But those impact fees will be used for park equipment and updates in 2025. Just wanted to note that prior, or for future. Then 100K was moved from LGIP highway equipment for the purchase of the Ford F-550. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you. We're moving to fire and EMS
Did
territory.
you see that right?
Yeah. Do you have a meeting after this one?
I just came from one.
This came from,
I don't know if you would want to move her.
well, we can shift, yeah, let's shift. Would like to. Go now?
Sure.
Certainly can. No, this is item 13 then. And Rachel's from the Oregon Senior Center.
And I know Jennifer has probably as part of the packet. A bunch of this information, is it in there?
It's in their packet, yes,
In
it's in
their
their packet.
And you
I will-
packet
I will
too,
say, yeah.
so.
Funds are
53.
53, okay.
There we are. So
I have a few things I'd like to talk with you tonight about. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the support that the town of Oregon has provided to the senior center for many, many years and continues to provide. It's greatly appreciated. The 4-page look back is, full of information about what we were up to last year. It is a compilation of all of the municipalities, all of the users of the senior center. So when you're looking at that data, it's not just the town of Oregon's information. A few things on the front page there in those squares that we were particularly proud of was the fact that last year, 100% of the people who called us wanting rides to medical appointments were able to get those rides as long as they called us within what our eligibility criteria is. They can't call 10 minutes before the appointment. They were gonna have a volunteer there, but that's a mostly volunteer-driven program. Our staff coordinates the rides, makes sure people are eligible, but it's volunteers who provide those rides, and to be able to provide rides to everybody who called and said, I need to get to a doctor, dentist, physical therapist, whatever medical appointment might be able to get them all there was quite an accomplishment, and that is not as much a reflection on us as it is on the volunteers that we rely on. We had 171 people borrow items from our medical equipment loan closet. That's not unusual, but I point out the medical equipment loan closet because there's no age limit on that. It's a short-term loan program. So we have high school kids who come in with a twisted ankle from a sports game or something. If you know people who need to borrow medical equipment for short-term use, as long as they're in the community, they're welcome. We had 180 active volunteers last year. They gave us the equivalent of 4 full-time staff in hours. It's the first year we've ever had more than what would be 4 full-time people just in volunteer hours. So we were pleased with that. Down in the lower corner where it says 92%, 92% of our case management clients were still living in their own homes at the end of the year. Case management clients tend to be fairly vulnerable people, often at risk of having kind of a spiraling downward movement in their lives. Our goal is to keep people in the community, is to connect them to resources. So if they want to stay living in their homes, they're able to safely do that for as long as feasible. And so for 92% of them to still have been able to be in their homes, and 8% of them had moved on to either assisted living facilities or in with a family member or, you know, passed away. 90% is pretty good. But so you get a bunch of numbers there. You can see almost 6,000 meals served to people at the center, a little over 5,000 meals provided to people in their homes. The next page, you'll see, you know, a listing of our 9 exercise classes, the fact that transportation is going up. One of our areas of real growth in the next year. The number of trips we provided last year went up 47%. So it's not just those volunteer rides to doctor's appointments, it's also a van service to take people to the grocery store, to the food pantry, to the senior center for lunch, to exercise class, to the library. So we're seeing that increase pretty consistently. There's a little blurb there on the new building project, but that's what was new as of the end of 2024. We'll talk about more updated information in a few minutes. So we won't waste time on that now. Top 5 areas of assistance provided by our case managers. So we have 2 case managers. They both work 4 days a week. The things that they're seeing people need the most help with is government assistance programs. So make people aware of what kinds of programs are available to help them see if they qualify, to then help them enroll. And then there's always be maintaining that. So if you are eligible to live in subsidized housing, for example, you have to first be aware that that exists. Do you qualify? How do you get it? And once you get it, every year there's a whole pile of paperwork that has to be done so that you can continue to receive that. They were busy scheduling transportation for people. They were busy with housing. Housing issues are a huge problem in Dane County for people. Mental health issues. We're increasingly seeing people dealing with complicated mental health conditions, and then people living with Alzheimer's or other conditions that result in dementia. Case managers, that was the things that kept them the most busy last year. We move on to the next page. Kind of like a gallop through the senior center. There's an orange box that has funding sources. So you can see the Village of Oregon is our biggest source of funding. Dane County is next. Town of Oregon is third. Our adult day program, one of the services we offer, for which there is a charge, is next in line, followed by the town of Rutland, town of Dunn, Village of Brooklyn, and then the city of Fitchburg makes a small contribution. We have some highlights from last year. One of the things that struck me last year, during Medicare open enrollment, people have a chance to change what Part D drug plan or what supplement plan or what advantage plan. If you're not old enough to be on Medicare, be glad. It is very complicated stuff. And our case managers help people with that. Generally, people switch because it allows them to save money. Once in a while, they have to switch because a medicine they need wasn't being covered by their plan anymore. But often they switch to save money, and the county can't keep track of exactly how much every person saves because they don't always know. Did Mr. Jones go from plan A to plan F, and how much did that save him? But they have a formula that they use to figure out about how much does each person save when they come in and see a case manager and make the choice to switch. And according to their monetary calculations, they say the impact of the work that our case managers did with local older adults, that had an impact of $270,800 and some dollars. So that's that much money that would be kept in people's pockets as a result of having a resource to come in and help them figure out how to save money on their insurance. One of the really amazing things that happened last year, and a lot of the people sitting in this room had a real part in that, was that the senior center was able to see the municipal funders sit down and figure out how to come up with an agreement that for 5 years would be funding for the senior center that wouldn't change, that the town of Oregon could count on the same number every year in its budget. This is the contribution we're going to make to the senior center. Town of Rutland, town of Dunn, Village of Brooklyn, Village of Oregon. We're able to work that out. So for that number of years, it's it is possible for your town officials to know what they're going to be working with in their budget, and it's possible for the senior center to know what we can expect as well. So that was a great accomplishment last year for us. We have a list of things that were new last year. We were able to add transportation to the new public library. Our Council on Aging, I don't know if you're all familiar with our Council on Aging, is a nonprofit corporation that is a separate entity from the senior center. They raise money to do the things that the municipal budget can't afford to do. I call it all the frills. So if we have somebody come perform for St. Patrick's Day, it's not the taxpayers who are paying for that. It's money from the Council on Aging has raised. And one of the things they did last year was they bought armchairs for our dining room. Our previous dining room chairs, which were 25 years old, but holding up very well, were very similar to what you're all sitting in tonight out here. No arms, and that was increasingly causing problems for people. And so the Council on Aging purchased new chairs for the dining room that have arms, and they've been very much appreciated. We can see we have here's our 4 volunteers. These people could be our 4 paid employees, but they're volunteers and they're still smiling. At least 3/4 of them. But that was, that was kind of our, we could have 4 employees, except our volunteers are so amazing. We don't have to have those people. On the back page, just a reminder that social isolation continues to be an epidemic in our older adult population, and it has a terrible impact on people's health. So we do our best to offer things that pull people together. So there's something kind of for everybody, depending on how they're comfortable, whether it's small groups, whether it's, I don't really want to engage with people, but I want to be in an exercise class where there's people around me, that I haven't just been alone today. There's a whole variety of things. So that's an overview. You then get the next page that we see is senior center services. We try to reduce to 1 page what the senior center offers. This piece of paper goes to places like medical clinics so that their staff understand, if they're working with somebody, what they can refer people to at the senior center. We give it to like outreach workers from churches and stuff so that they know if they're visiting homebound parishioners, what sort of things are available. But it's kind of interesting to see just what all the senior center offers, kind of in one place. So if anybody has any questions about either this or this, I'll answer them now, but otherwise we'll move on to what is the town of Oregon population actually using of all of these things that the senior center. And that is the boring page of statistics. But not boring to me, because every one of these numbers is people. So what you have down the left side is the variety of things that we offer. And across the top, we have the various municipalities who are using the center. So the Village of Oregon is in that first column, and then the town of Oregon. So what you're seeing in the first category on the left, it says case management, and MA means Medicaid units, hours of service. That's how they're measured. So 31 older adults living in the town of Oregon received 313 hours of case management services in 2024. And in the next category, outreach, 95 older adults received outreach services 298 times. Now, the difference between case management and outreach is the length of the relationship. So if somebody calls and they say, I can't drive anymore, I'm going to need help getting to appointments. I don't know how I'm going to get my groceries. I don't know how I'm going to get my medications. We know that's not a problem that's going to be one and done. They're going to need help on an ongoing basis. Probably they're going to be opened up as a case management file. But if somebody calls and says, there's water in my basement, I think I've maybe shorted out my water heater, I'm not sure what to do. That's something that is probably going to not be an ongoing issue. They need to be directed in the right direction to figure out how to handle that situation. And we're going to record that as an outreach contact. So that's the difference between case management and outreach. And I think most of the rest of these categories, obviously, home delivered meals are home delivered meals. Meals that went 8 people got 516 meals delivered to their homes. Congregate is kind of a strange word, but it just means people who came to the center and had a meal. So most of the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. And you can see not only what people in the town of Oregon are doing at the senior center or what services they're using, but you can see pretty much what else is going on, you know, how much are the people in the village using it? So that breaks it down for you. It'll also tell you with the far right, how many total people. So we had 246 people who got case management services, a little over 2,000 hours, 2,056 hours. So you can see what the aggregate is over at the end. Any questions about that exciting page of numbers? If not, a couple other things. One is, Roe, before he left, I heard ask the question about funding and what do we know about funding? And funding is, while you guys, we have good, stable municipal funding, part of the funding that we receive comes from Dane County. Some of that is pass-through money from federal programs. Those federal programs are in a bit of limbo right now. The Older Americans Act money that has been used to support a lot of senior center programs for decades and decades and decades was always administered by a federal division of the Health and Human Services agency called American Community Living. That department was eliminated fairly recently, last week. And they say they're going to reassign the functions of that department to other still existing departments. We'll see how that all rolls out. More concerning than that is Medicaid funding is really being looked at very closely. And Medicaid funding is part of the money that's used to support transportation programs for people. It's also the money that helps pay for the food that goes out to people who are homebound. So it will remain to be seen how this all shakes out. It's interesting because even though we feel like it's spring, we're just at the beginning of a year, we're already working on budgets for next year and we have no idea what those budgets are going to look like. So it's interesting. If you value the services that the federal government helps provide to older adults, those Older American Act funds and Medicaid funded services, it's not a bad idea to let your federal representatives, senators and stuff know that you would prefer that things continue that those services continue to be available for people. So I don't really have a lot more information than that. I can tell you that the federal government money is up here and it flows through a lot of different places before it gets to us here. And there's many layers of people who are watching this and have a better vantage point than we do at the bottom. But be aware that we could see changes in some of the programs that our people are currently relying on. So any questions on that before we shift gears to a different subject? New building subject. On April 7th, so last week, I guess, yeah, last Monday, the village board considered what to do about the new senior center. So for the last year and a half, 2 years, we've been going through a process of figuring out what might a future senior center look like. There was a space needs analysis done. How much space does a senior center need? There's been a concept design put together. There's been community engagement. What do people want? We had a whole bunch of open houses about early 2024, asking people what they wanted a future senior center to look like. The senior center is a department of the Village of Oregon. And so it's the Village of Oregon that's thinking about building a building. The agreement that the town of Oregon, all these towns have with the village says nothing about paying for a future building. There's no obligation to pay for a building. That's the village's decision to make and their money to commit if that's the choice they make. But they chose last week to go ahead with the design, the schematic design of a future senior center. So instead of just plopping a white box on a corner of a lot, they say, now let's see what the inside of that might look like. How would we lay out those rooms? What would that look like? What they're currently envisioning is a senior center that would be built in what is the old library parking lot. That would allow the current senior center to stay in its current spot and continue to operate out of our building that we have now while a new one is built, so that we don't have to go somewhere for the time that there's construction going on. The village is very careful to remind us all that they've committed to designing a building. We don't know how much that building might cost. We don't know whether the village can afford to borrow that money to build that new building. So they're working on the next step, and then there's another checkpoint. At some point, they'll reach the decision-making moment of, are they going to borrow money for a new building or are they not? But we're not there yet. So that is sort of the story of where the potential new senior center building is. And you look like you might have a question.
I do. Have they decided on, have they picked architects or companies for an RFP at all?
They had an RFP out last year, and I believe it was June. They hired, they had 3 architectural firms of the ones that responded to their RFP. They narrowed it down to 3, had those 3 come in, talked to all 3 of them. Turned out that they hired OPN Architects, which was the same architectural firm that designed the library. I don't think they expected to hire the same firm, but it turned out that I think one of the things that was in the firm OPN's favor was they came saying, we've designed some senior center type buildings before, but we have this consultant in Ohio who's willing to work with us, who has designed senior centers in 32 different states. He's a award-winning architect in the senior center design world. And he's gonna partner with us if we get this contract. And so I think that really was to their benefit that they went out and sought out somebody who really understood senior center design. So that firm will continue through the rest of the design process. Of course, if they go to building, who knows? Yeah, who might build it down the road. But the current senior center building, it's, for those of you who've been here a long time, you remember when it was Paul's grocery store. The building itself was, I don't think it was the most primo building in the first place. Nobody builds a grocery store to have it be, a wonderful, wonderful building. It's getting really old. It hasn't been remodeled since the mid-90s. when I last had to have the grease traps cleaned out in the kitchen, the guys, the public works guys who were working on the grease traps said, just so you know, we won't be able to do this again. And I said, what? You're gonna stop doing this service? And they said, no, your grease trap, your infrastructure is falling apart in there. And I went, oh. And then I said, we're going to train all of the kitchen volunteers not to put anything down that sink because we can't clean that again. So it's just, you know, it's a crumbling building that if the village is going to continue to try and use it for any great length of time, it's gonna require some investment, which you really want to do. Not my decision, though. Any other questions on possible new building?
Wasn't there someone in Oregon, Arlen Kay or somebody that was like a designer at one time?
Right here.
He's like sitting right there.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. That's firm done, or you retired from that, or,
Have I retired from that?
well, the designing business, or?
It keeps, the phone keeps ringing every now and then, but I'm no longer licensed or insured.
If the village moves forward, the earliest that they would envision actually literally starting construction of something would be about a year from now. And then it would take another year from that point, probably, if everything went really smoothly, to get a building done. So we're trying not to put any grease down the grease trap, shall we say. I'm hoping our 5 furnaces continue to operate because they're old. So that is that, but I do have my favorite part of the evening is still to come. Oh, where is it?
On the broad side.
It's a plug. The Council on Aging. We talked about the Council on Aging before and how they purchased armchairs for our dining room. Well, the Council on Aging also pays for a lot of stuff at the senior center. And the way the Council on Aging makes money is through donations and fundraisers. And we just so happen to have the Brat Bash coming up on Friday, May 9th. Between 11 and 1, if you drive through our parking lot, you don't even have to get out of the car. You just drive up, somebody asks you, how many brats or how many hot dogs do you want? You pay for them, they load them up, they hand them to you, you drive away. It's the same weekend as the community garage sale. So if you're out garage sailing, you can go there for lunch. If you're having a garage sale so that you can't come here and get these brats and hot dogs, you can take a poster tonight and hang at your garage sale and say to everyone coming through, hey, you know, if you don't have plans for lunch, there's some great food available in the senior center parking lot. So if anybody wants, we do have places, you know, we'll hang these around town in the obvious places, but we don't get everywhere. So if anybody wants a couple to put anywhere, if they think that anybody would see them, and Jennifer, I'm happy to leave however many you think, you know, if you wanna.
I'll take a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put
We're
a
gonna
couple
put 'em-
that are toward, yeah. So I'll take like 3.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else watch any? Otherwise, unless you have
They're so
any
cute. I know.
other questions,
I
yeah,
love
they've
the
got that
colors.
brat strapped to the top of the car, because they don't want it to blow off.
I know.
while they eat it.
It's not a Wienermobile.
No.
It's not.
That's what my one's not.
Any other questions for Rachel?
Yeah, any other questions for me? Otherwise, thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, so we'll circle back here to agenda item number 11 and 10. Is Brooklyn Fire EMS?
Brooklyn Fire and EMS, quick recap of who the Brooklyn Fire and EMS is. They serve 3,500 people in 47 square miles. The Brooklyn Fire EMS District is made up of the towns of Brooklyn, Oregon, Rutland, Union, and the village of Brooklyn. There are, each one of those municipalities is represented on the commission. If you look at page 47, you'll see what the current membership is of the Oregon or the Brooklyn Fire EMS District is. They have 44 members. The majority of them have medical training. About 2/3 of them have fire training, and about half of them have both medical and fire training. They spend a tremendous amount of time training at the Brooklyn Fire EMS, and the recap of that is on page 49. Response calls for the fire EMS were up rather substantially in 24. They were up about 30%. And at the same time, if you look at page 49, the left column at the bottom talks about out of service hours. They have been working from a volunteer organization to a paid organization over the last number of years. And they went from 2022 out of service hours. In other words, they didn't have staff to cover about 1,500 hours of service in 2022. And they have reduced that to less than 180 hours in 2024. So they have done a marvelous job recruiting people. Obviously, they are not recruiting at the same levels that Madison or even the Village of Oregon have been recruiting, but they have done a fabulous job recruiting. They've recently brought on 3 new members just in the last about 3 months. And you can see that they do a tremendous amount of training, either medical, fire, or medical and fire, EMS and fire training. At the end of 24, they did travel down to Iowa to purchase their new ambulance. That is now in service, and they're getting ready to sell their old ambulance, something that the Village of Oregon may have an interest in, actually, because there's a lot of life left in that ambulance. See if there's anything else I want to highlight. I don't think so. They're just doing a great job down there. I think the morale is very good in Brooklyn. I think they have very nice equipment, and they've got a great group of people working there. Do you have any questions that I can answer for you about the Brooklyn Fire and EMS?
Thanks, Tim. And the next one then is the Belleville Fire EMS, and I've got that one. So Belleville, it's actually BME Fire EMS, so Belleville, Montrose, Exeter, Town of Oregon, Town of Brooklyn. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I wanted to report just a couple things more related to the district board and the activities that are going on there. One of the things that's sort of close to home with the Town of Oregon is that we've had a schedule conflict with a board schedule conflict for a few years, and we haven't been able to attend. Usually we have a board member attend the district meetings. And end of last year, we were lucky enough to have one of the Belleville residents, who's also town of Oregon, volunteer to represent the town board at the BME district meetings, fire and EMS district meetings. So Mike Rakowski is that gentleman. He, it's been a lifesaver, because really what we've been doing for the last couple of years is waiting for meeting minutes to get to us, because we just didn't have people able to attend. So he's been a lifesaver. I just wanted to point that out. A couple of key things about Belleville, Montrose, Exeter, us, that whole fire and EMS district, is that the Town of Oregon's portion of that district's population is only about 2%. We have, I think, about 30 households, about 63 residents that are part of that fire and EMS district. So the result of that is that some parts of the budget, right, we're only really responsible for 2% of what some of the budget is. Some other things, not so much. So we have, I mean, obviously we want services for those people to be there. It's just, for us, it's something of a management issue to have just 2% of the district. One of the things that the district has been, that the district board has been doing over the past year or so is having an audit done of the financials, the fire and EMS district financials. That was called, I believe, if I remember right, that was something that the village of Belleville requested. The village of Belleville is the biggest chunk of the population in that fire and EMS district. And one of the things they've suggested recently, let's say the last 4 months or so, is a rewrite of the district agreement. Part of it is to schedule audits more frequently, and part of it is to adjust the voting, the percentage of voting that's granted to each municipality. So that's in the works right now. But that might have an impact on budget too, especially audits are not cheap. And there's been discussion of whether there should be an annual audit or every 3 years audit. So there's some things that are up in the air with the actual management of the district. And I won't get to like say the count of calls and things like that. That's, I think there's a document that we can find for you if you're interested in that. But overall, very happy that Mike Rakowski is representing us. And we're working with Mike and working with the district board to work through the changes in the district agreement. Any questions about that? Okay. Thank you. And that's the end of our reporting. And then the last item here is oath of office for the 3 of us who were just reelected in April.
Yep. Do we want to do this? So oath of office weeks. Made the official oath already, but this is kind of our ceremonial oath. Do you guys want to do this? The same oath? Do you want to do this together? Do you want to do it individually? How do you want to do it?
I think, well, altogether it's fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is that you guys? So you're going to say your own name and then I will.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You guys want to stand? Okay. Raise your right hand and I'm just gonna say I and then you're gonna say your name.
Yes,
Okay, wait.
Oh.
We're gonna.
I got a bad hamstring.
And you don't have
You don't
to
have to
stand. You
Oh,
don't have to stand.
I better.
Eventually.
Oh, it's tight enough. Thank you. I have no choice.
I
Tim LeBrun.
Carl Walton,
had been elected to the office of town board.
Chair.
Supervisor.
Yeah,
Supervisor.
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
I will.
I will.
Thank you.
Thanks. That concludes our agenda. I just want to make sure before we adjourn that any questions that pop into mind, anyone? Yes, sir.
Driving around, I see a lot of these green utility box things that used to be in front of a lot of homes and driveways that are just kind of like, yeah. They seem like they're not really, like they're tipped over. The covers aren't even on them anymore. Anybody have an idea why that is? Is there so much other underground stuff that's been put in that they don't need that stuff now, or I don't know?
No. If you could let us know locations as you notice, if you want to send us a location, do you think they're in town, the town of Oregon or village?
I'd say mostly in the town.
Okay. I'm not aware of any.
Well, there are some in our neighborhood off Valley Drive there. I drive past them every day.
That are open
And
or
they're kind
falling?
of a lot of them are tilted and fallen. I don't know if that has anything to do with, for example, TDS coming in and laying fiber aqueduct. I know they did it at our residence and a few other of my neighbors.
I think some of them are old cable boxes.
Yeah.
Junction boxes. Some of them are old phone junction boxes and some of them are power boxes. The biggest ones, ones that might be as big as this table are power, most of them, but a lot of those small all ones are either phone, mostly phone.
So what is Ditch Witch doing? Can anybody explain that? What are they putting in? Is it fiber optic for the general use of everybody that's in, you know, in that municipality or?
We have right of way work happening periodically, so I
Yeah.
don't, without knowing the location, I don't know that I can answer that.
I know they came into our neighborhood a year or two ago and laid a bunch down and in our own case, when I switched over to TDS, they came in, they actually came in and went from Allen Drive. We're on two lots and back to our end of our first lot, and for some reason did a U-turn and came down and went underneath our deck to reach whatever they had to reach in our basement and did a very nice job. But I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Joe, or.
But if you notice, if you happen to notice and can write down or make a note of where you see something like that, we can check and see whether we know who's working on it, if it's active work or if it's just something that some vendor needs to be.
But if there's a ditch witch, you're supposed to be getting a permit to work in the right of way.
Right.
If they're in
We
the
would have
public
to
right of way,
know.
they should have a permit from the town.
But we
Yeah.
don't know where he's talking.
We don't know.
We've been putting all of the right of way, on the website, so it would be on the website, putting them on there.
Okay.
So, and there's nothing right now because nobody would be working right now because it's, you know.
And Ditch Witch isn't a contractor. That is the piece of equipment. That's like a Caterpillar.
Yeah.
And any one of those entities, phone, cable, or power might use a piece of equipment to bury something. So you might see those because they're replacing a line or running new line for some reason.
Well, it's just kind of funny to see them not necessarily covered or tipped over, like I know at our place. We had an issue with Spectrum and after 3 or 4 visits, they said, well, we have to do something at the box. We got to put new equipment in the box. I thought, well, okay. So at least it's, you know, I guess it still has some use in maybe a lot of places or every place, so.
Right. Well, let us know if you notice, let us know and we can try to track back. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much to all of you for coming out tonight. I'm going to wrap this up and then without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.